This is the territory of art. I'm Eric Bogosian. In this episode, we present Zangezi, excerpts from the Russian constructivist play directed by Peter Sellars.
Zangezi by Velimir Khlebnikov, first and last produced in Petrograd in 1923, for one night only.
Excerpts. Introduction.
A story is made of words the way a building is made of construction units. A superstory is made up of independent sections, each with its own special god. It is carved from the varicolored blocks of the word, each with its own different structure.
A stack of word planes.
A stack of word planes. The mountains. At the edge of a clearing rises a steep, craggy rock. It resembles an iron needle seen through a magnifying glass. Like a pilgrim's staff left standing against a wall, it stands against perpendicular slopes of layers of rock, overgrown by the pine forest.
This platform is Zangezi's favorite place. Here he reads his sermons to the people or to the forest.
The sound of a pine forest in the wind. Night weeps as she passes here.
I have come like a butterfly into the hall of human life, and must spatter my dusty coat as signature across its bleak windows, as a prisoner scratches his name on fate's unyielding window pane. Human life is papered thick with grayness and boredom, the transparent no of its windows. Already I have worn away my bright blue glow, my pointillated patterns, my wings' blue windstorm. The bright motes of my first freshness are gone. My wings waver, colorless and stiff. I droop despairing at the windows of the human world. Numbers, eternal numbers, sound in the beyond. I hear their distant conversation. Number calls to number. Number calls me home.
He wants to be a butterfly.
He thinks he's so smart.
That's what he wants to be, a butterfly.
Pretty poor prophet, if you ask me. A butterfly, he looks more like an old lady.
He's kind of clever, but he hasn't got the true poetic fire.
He hasn't got the true poetic fire. His sermon is all just raw material. A lot of unworked stuff.
A lot of green wood.
Go dry out, thinker.
Plan 10. Back, bog, move, mog, march, man muscle. I am maker and might. I am mover and may. I am matter and might. I am the mighty mower, moving, improving, mow might, mitch man, magnetite magus, moving, improving, muscle march. March, mitch man, hands, arms, mammering, mowering, force face, full of muchness, maturing eyes, maturing thoughts, maturing brows. See my face, my might head, my arms, my might hood, my hands, my arms, might maker, main mantle, motor matter, motivated power mower, mogra. My force face mammographied, many-mastering, mod-mating muscle. You shake your hair like a mountain moga, a manifold maze, a nest of moglings, of muchlets and manings, of mitlings and masterkins, mushable mitlemains, where one middle madlet still rise in the mouring moggle of magistry, a mag of might, a breeding herd of mitlings and muchlets. The raven beats her wings, brings water in her beak. I must hurry, so I will not be late. See my face, man muscle, magus of magnitudes, master of muchness, mickle mitches, major motion picture. I move like firepower, mogi man, monster of men's imagination, mickle mitches in a little magoom, move, man muscle, mogs over mowering muchness, mammering mog, man's marrow, power mirror, magnify mind, my magni-mind, hands magnify, arms mogrify, mucher mitchman, magic mogasm, move, makers of magnitudes, master of muchness, moogle eyes, mug mouth, mitchness of muchnesses. Now M has invaded the lands and the holdings of Bog, destroying the fear of him, achieving our necessary victory. Now the infantry army of M has ground down the rock of the impossible impassable, the Stone Age savage, ground into meal, into minute particles, matter from mites. They reduce a tree to moss and meadow grass, an eagle to a moth, an elephant to a mouse and a mosquito. The one whole becomes the many, a mass of minute elements. Now is the coming of M. Mallet that mauls the great, omnivorous moth to mange the fur coats of centuries. Now let us wake the sleeping gods of speech. Shake the bastards by the beard! Wake up, you old ones! I am the Mogagur, the guru who gospels the name of M, might maker of might makers. Our course lies toward M, humanity's North Star, our polar point, the pole that supports the haystacks of our beliefs. Toward M, the bark of the century sails. Toward M, the dugout of humanity sails, a proud breath filling the sails of governments and states. We have come from the land of the mind to the mighty domain of Mog.
Mog. Mog. Mog.
Listen! The mountains acknowledge your declaration. Can you hear that proud flourish? Mogu! The mountains reply to your claim of possession. 1,000 voices repeated in the clamoring canyons. Can you hear the gods beating their wings, startled up by our shouting?
The gods are flying away. The gods are flying away. The power of our voices has terrified the gods. Is that good? Is that bad?
They are the bright blue still end, the sky full of bright blue I fall, never, never fleeing things, whispering on irrelevant wings, fledglings in flight, seeking their self-land, flocking through darkness to vanishment, a swelling of heavenly neverings, a swirling of wing-welling overings. They have flown, fading and groaning, forgetting their getting, their names, unwillingly lulled in their own unwantings. Criers and callers, all whirled into wasteland, earth's own backward, the everlasting everlost of heaven, into the goneness of here, into the notness of now, hovering, haveless through star frost and sea spray, toward elsewhere. wayfarers on the evening air, listening like thought secrets, heaven's harriers, these nestlings of nowhere, a lattering flutter of wings, in flight to some elsewhere, of fledglings in flight, seeking their self-lent. Hover home, breeder of streaming light, of strange, unattainable flutter and fluxion. Wing wavers white as drifting down, weary wizards of downward drift, wavering dowsers of dawn. River of blue sky stead, weary wings of the dreamstead, broad harmonies of the downstead, barefooted in star clusters, there you died. Heaven hovers in their hair, heaven hovers in their voices, streaking the eastern stream of Everland. They fly away into their Neverland with the nevering eyes of earthlings, like knotnesses of earth lore. Fleet flight to the blue of heaven, flight fleet into blue, hovering, shrouded in all-knowing sorrow, they fly to the source of pre-knowledge. Winglings of nowhere, mouths of now here, winglings of not here, mouths of no there. Heaven hovers in their faces. They are the dwellers in the blue places, high heaven's harriers, a flood of flame, the heavenly fire river over us all. Their untamed eyes, all vanishing vision, their untamed mouths saying, not here.
Hey, Zangezi, we want something more down to earth.
We've had enough of this sky stuff. Play us a tune we can dance to.
Are you supposed to be a thinker? Think of some entertainment.
Everybody here wants to be entertained. That's the way things are. We just had a good dinner. We want to relax.
Hey, Zangezi!
Hey, Zangezi. You on our side, Zangezi? You got your match, Zangezi?
Here, take these. These are the matches of destiny.
Yes, sir.
No, sir. The gathering storm is never an illusion. Ardent, impassioned relief demanded death from the royal house of Uric. Poison flows in the veins of every king, and he dangled in the gallows dance. For relief, death was sweeter than chains. The naked storm rushes above us. The cause of freedom is afoot. Let them lie quiet in their graves. After 2 to the 13th, the year was 1848. Shepherds of hordes, red hordes, the wind of freedom, a day of universal storm. The poles rose up in revolt, disdaining the catcalls of destiny. Destiny's cheeks puffed out, her twisted mouth in a whistle. The grim east frowned like the point of a gun. Uncompromising, harsh as the sound of gunfire, the point of a rifle, frowned at the springtime of Poland's uprising. But after 3 to the 5th, or 243 days have been scattered like coins of gold, a sudden fiery shot, like the idea of death on death row, a pistol bullet in the heart, a bag, the insurgents' fatal full stop. Pacifier of Poland, viceroy of Poland, rude precursor of the clank of chains. See there, that chain link glitters. After 3 to the 5th, the moment of vengeance, a shot, and the sight of gun smoke curling upward. Consider the American president. Garfield elected, the ice of distrust is broken. Then, after 3 to the 5, savagery stalks and Garfield lies dying, lies dead. Consider the streets of Rome, the pillaging hordes from the east who bound the white city in dark heavy chains, provided a meal for legions of crows. After 2 times 3 to the 11th, the mountain of skulls grew out of a battle, the battle of Puliakova. Moscow has written a clean copy of the rough draft of the first Rome's fate, with the ink of its initial victories. The machine gun fire of the eastern invasion grew silent. One unforgettable battle, it cleaned out the cartridge clip of the eastern invasion. The miller of time has erected a skull heap, a dam from the bones of Kulyakova. Across the steppe, the cry of stop! Moscow stands guard,
Hordes of nations galloped against the west, wave after wave, Goths and Huns, and then the Tatars. After 2 times 3 to the 11th, Moscow arose in her helmet of snowstorms and cried to the east, "Not one step more!" The land grew sterile. It whitened beneath the Tatar yoke. For a long time, their inundation glittered. Then Yermak, with his daredevil laughter, setting his stern brow at an angle, testing the wind with his broad beard, sailed the beautiful rivers of Siberia to the far-off city of Kuchum. The tenderest thing in the world cannot stop him. The die was cast, and the victor's lot shone in the water's reflection. Stars over Ishkar sparkled, and Moscow acquired 1/2 of the world. The snouts of bears sniffed at the oncoming Russians. Bear cubs tumbled at play on the rock piles. The elk and its offspring migrated in hordes, enticing prizes. The pelts of sables attracted the heavy boyars of the capital. Voyevodas set out to discover new lands. They sailed through northern oceans, through seas of ice. When the Tatar troubles were finally over, it was Russia's turn to inherit the east, and then 2 times 3 to the 10th, after the taking of Ishka, after the stern eyes of Yermak reflected in Siberian rivers, came the day of the Battle of Mukden, when all that daring returned unto dust. That is always the way. After 3 to the nth power comes the moment of shift, of reversal. Yermak becomes Shtyotsel. After 3 to the 10th day isn't as much again. When Kuryukova was for the Tatars, the horror of Mukden became for the Russians. Like a prophet in eyeglasses at his writing desk, Vladimir Solovyov foresaw it all. If Shtyotsel loved piglets, then he was Yermak after 3 to the 10th. And Bulgaria, when she had broken the chains of her overlord and risen up, freed after so many years by the vote of an international tribunal, that valley of flowers, it was because of the time that had passed. 3 to the 11th power, from the day of the Battle of Tereva, when Kiev was taken by Tatars, camels were stabled in the cathedrals, the Russian capital was taken, but 3 to the 10th power passed on the heights of Angora. Tamerlane met Bajazet, let Bajazet sit in his cage. The Mongols themselves were rebuffed after another power of 3. The dawn of their power shifting toward darkness. Here, there, everywhere, the sword submits to the ancient power of odd and even. A watchtower is built of 2s and 3s, and the abbot of time paces its summit, where tattered military banners peck the air and horses are stubbornly silent. Only their echoing hoof resounds. The dead, the living, alike all discarded. These are the iron batons of time, the axes of events, armature for the straw man of the universe. The scarecrow of war is supported by rods, like the iron rods that frame up a straw man. Number is the wire of the universe. Where are these sparks of truth or empty stories? The ways of the east and the west alternate by a power of 3. The Greeks fought the Persians in gold-crested helmets. From cliffs they hurled the invader harshly into the sea. Marathon, and the defeated east ebbed away, burning its ships behind it. They pursued them and cut across the steppe. After 4 times 3 to the 11th power, Constantinople waits for the battle axes. A tobacco spark ignites the temple church. Everything falls to the Turks. Your prince on his handsome horse will be swallowed up in the flames. A trader tosses his profits overboard, for the Turks approach and disaster comes with them. 1917, the Tsar abdicates. The white mare of freedom. A wild gallop, a breakthrough. The 2-headed eagle smashed in the square. The mare's dark eyes glitter with the image of a knife. The grip of autocracy can no longer rein her in. She gallops. Her hooves swirl up the dust, galloping proud as a prophetess. Behind her the dead past breaks. It tears apart on the rocks. Where is she galloping? What does she want? You will never catch up. All this dust makes it hard to keep up. Fire and darkness burn in her eyes, and that is because 2 to the 12th power days have passed since the days of bloody Preshnia. Here the number 2 is the god of time, and the Tsar's fell, still clutching the bridle, and the far-off halloo of distant pursuit was a magic horn in the distance. The voices of cannon shook old Moscow's south embankment. Min's monument barred its cast-iron curls before the shells of Min descending everywhere. It was a celebration of Min's birthday. The laughter of guns from Sparrow Hill stunned the most beautiful icons, the mothers of God of Moscow in the depths of their chapels. It is Pushkin who cuts the N from his name like a lock of his curly hair. Canonical Pushkin becomes canonical, blasting, pushing with the power of a misplaced N. Min was victorious. He declaimed an Onegin of steel and lead in the deaf ears of the crowd. He intended to set himself up on the monument, and after 3 to the 5th day, as the snow turned bloody, no one recognized him. The crowds began to run, and Min fell dead. Konopianikova killed him. After 3 to the 5th, 243 days, precisely more than pity. Vengeance came, that wonder of remorselessness. Steel pounded hard on humanity's bones. The cannon stopped only on Sunday. Surrender seemed the only salvation. The German sword above our heads was an order to calamity and silence. Then at last, a peace treaty, a monkey on our back, and after 3 to the 5th, an SR assassinated Mirbach. If a knife is concealed in the fist and revenge stares hard from the eyes, then it's time who howls, I want, and yes sir, obedient fate replies. Nickery, flickery, little stew ball, coachery, catchery, tortury, mortuary, matchery, catchery, witchery, watchery, evens in heavens as evening descends, nickery, flickery, little stew ball. The storm is a seance that I can see, signs of a science the eye can see. Hello, freedom, goodbye, force, giddy up, my good horse. I have rivers for hair, see where the Danube streams upon my shoulders. Turbulent tantrums rip the Dniepr's blue rapids. This This is the Volga, the shining big sea water, and this long hair that I twist in my fingers, this is the Amur, where geishas gaze toward heaven, praying away the storm. I am the master carpenter of time. I have deciphered the timepiece of humanity and set its hands accurately, attached a sheet of numbers, read over again the book of ages, chiseled the lug nut into place. The destiny hand of this steel heaven moves. I have faced it with crystal. It ticks more quietly now, the way it used to. I wear the timepiece of humanity, casually, like a wristwatch. The ratchets and wheels of its works whisper their steel conversation. I am a proud rider, a mender of brains. They move and work the way they did before. Clumps of intelligence, stacks of sense, a wagon train of dead ideas, manure for God's eternal acres, their foreparts gods and beasts behind. Gather them like sheaves and stack them up with laughter. Grant them several gates and make them swift and playful. These are things that furrow thinkers' foreheads, these songs of the holy book. Work is in the factory of thought. Work, produce, deliver. Give them room to run. Swiftness in maneuver and restlessness in fire. Banish from their course all conflict and disaster, and let the stripling's curls fly the father's anger. Marshal them on trains, on swift night-moving steamships. Let them eat the grass of stars and follow humanity's highways in deep galactic spaces. Let the chill rush of every river entice them into open fields, persuade them to their rest. And let the clip-clop of my cadences lie colt-like on the new-mown hay and sleep like clumps of dreams worn out by springtime. Planets of Earth, forward march! Just suppose somebody throws a net of numbers over the globe. Does that mean he raises our minds? No. It means our mind is more alone. Once it meant slugs and snails. Now it means living like eagles. Rainbows growing every day. Hooray! Tomorrow the planet explodes with a network of overhead roads. Hooray! And if somebody calls you a god, you rant and rave and say it's a lie. God only comes up part way. He's only as high as my heel. Hooray! We'll fly our existence away. People are glaciers about to flow. The more we fly, the higher we go. Everyone playing to beat the band, batting the planet from hand to hand. See the patterns of waves of sand and the curly hair of the sea. The beach, the branches, the debris. Pine tree branches move a hand, and a book is written on the sand. The book of the pine, the shore, the sea. Sandy waves, a stand of pines, and someone nearby whistles. I can hear their breath move in and out. The sea by daylight chews on silence like a thrown-away bone. Blue storm sea beast, blue hair sea beast, the slap of its pelt on the shore. A rock for a pillow, a bush for a bed, sea foam for bed sheets, and a swarm of stars for a comforter. For that hermit from himself, that dweller in the sea's fine mansions, the ordinary wind. I discontent you, ocean. You discontent me. You pour out these mile-long stretches of speckled basket foam, pilings and pilings and pilings. On a scaffold of pilings, something menacing crouches, something ripened in secret like armfuls of dusky rye. It's hard to make progress through waves of sand. Who's there? It's the flower seller sea. Come down to the shore, sit next to me. I'm an ordinary earthman, just like you. Call me humanity. I am teaching the sons of neighboring galaxies to salute me by the numbers 1, 2. Shouting at suns is a rough, uncompromising job. I am a warrior. Time is a rifleman. These are my leggings, Roman flames, charred and smoking. A smoldering plank from her temples, laced up with equations stretched tight. That's legging number 1. And Constantinople, where a warrior perishes in flames, that's legging number 2, and that works too. You see, I can stride back and forth across the centuries. My leggings fit tight. Room, friends, to roam. I hear the call of great capital cities. The great gods of sound shake the plates of earth and heap up the dust of humanity, the dust of the family of man, humbled by each foundation stone into huge capital cities, into lakes of standing waves, burial mounds of thronging thousands. We breathe like a wind upon you. We whistle, our breath moves. We blow blizzards of nations. We cause waves. We bring ripples and waves. A measured groundswell moves across the smooth face of centuries. We bring you war and the downfall of empires. We are the wild sounds. We are wild, wild horses. Tame us. We will carry you off to other worlds, faithful to the wild rider of sound. Trumpet the charge, humanity. Round up the herd of wild horses. Saddle and bridle the cavalry of sound.
What's this? Zangezi is dead.
Not only that, but he did it himself with a razor.
What terrible news.
What a sad story. All that he left was a little note that said, "Razor, cut my throat." A lotus flower of shining steel, opening its petals, pushing through the water of his life.
And now he's dead.
The motive seems to have been the destruction of all his manuscripts by fiendish villains with big broad chins and lips that went smack, smack, chomp, chomp.
Zangezi lives! It was all just a stupid joke.
Zangezi, performed by David Warrilow and directed by Peter Sellars. Technical advisors, Skip Peasy and Leszek Wojciech. Thanks to the Library of Natural Sounds at Cornell University's Laboratory of Ornithology and the Dia Art Foundation. This program was produced for MoCA by Alex Van Oss. The executive producer for the Territory of Art is Julie Lazar. Senior producer, Steve Rath, Murray Street Enterprise. Production manager, Steve Profit. Mastering engineer and technical consultant, Chris Solom. Series theme music by Bob Telson. Production facilities provided by 52nd Street and KUSC, Los Angeles. Funds for the Territory of Art were provided by the Polaroid Corporation on the occasion of its 50th anniversary, the Rockefeller Foundation, the American Public Radio Program Fund with the assistance of the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, and the National Endowment for the Arts. The Territory of Art is a production of MoCA, the Museum of Contemporary Art, Los Angeles, which is solely responsible for its content. For cassette copies of the program or additional information, write MoCA Radio, 250 South Grand Avenue, Los Angeles, California, 90012. For the Territory of Art, I'm Eric Bogosian.
This is the American Public Radio Network.
This is the Territory of Art. I'm Eric Bogosian. In this episode, we present the hypnagogic tale of a man who comes face to face with his imagination. The program is called Pinny's Ghost.
Penny's Ghost by John O'Keefe.
I can hear the wee weeds. Ooh, yes, Lily Blanc. Black backs lined up, making the shed air to dark. Joey Beam. Lily Blanc, way out in the night, all alone in her house, hooting. Whispering wish sisters on the other side of town, turning their beds back and thinking about the window. Joey Beam. They're all awake now.
And that time and this time, yes, that time and this.
Grave owls and old October coming up through the roots. Joey Beam's feeling it into his boots, turning up around his tired feet, creak cracking in the dark, humming the corners up, wetter and windy, skimmering drops out of the water sprouts and blowing them far up out of the river, into the corn and the grass and the buzzy clouds unshaping. A tall black shadow near the well, says the wind, coming down on him, wheeling around his pants legs, and up it goes, nodding with the night, and blasting far away out of here. Joey Beam. The cool, clear star.
Go on. Go down there in the ground and die. Go on down there. Go on down there in the ground. Throw the lick to the doggies and they'll stop screaming. Bite them on their muscles and they'll shut up.
Joey Beam uncocked his face. And he got the idea that he could turn his back on it all. And he thought he could turn his back on it. On the black walls of the shed where old dead rat lady had got the carrots for the rats before he was even born, and where her hoverprints still made the air cooler and thinner and full of wakies and woozies. That he could turn his back, careful so that her print eyes wouldn't think that it was his backside he was turning. Careful so that her print fingers wouldn't come up on him like a wind around him. Careful so that the dogs didn't think he was going back to the house to keel over. Joey Beam's bottom lip crawled towards his nose. Don't make no funny face, Joey Beam, else they'll think you're joking. Think about Penny. And far up in the air, something turned black and touched out some little stars, and then some others, and then some more. This dot and that dot, traveling way overhead, seeing the lights of the ladies still on, and still farther out, the rim of the world and the bric-a-brac town lights. But Joey Beam didn't see him. He was peeping at the yard light and hearing the bumpy crackle of the bug smacking it. No, he was lining up the house in his mind end. No, he wouldn't make no turn with his head first and just see the house that way. No, he'd just roll through the cool air and find himself thinking it was time to sit down and warm up his feet. thought about how when Penny'd get drunk, she'd be like a ghost passing among people. Like a wet, crying thing. Like a rag. Skinny with her hair sticking out like she was electrocuted. And there'd be her hands like glass stuck to her sides. And her lips all red and shiny with stickum on them with a black hole popping out. And when you put your ear to her mouth, you could only hear the water moving. And with that, Joey Beam turned his back. The wind flew through him, his whispers whisked from his mouth. The oily sky twisted and spilled and swept under his belly, and grasshoppers snapped out of the cold grass. The horizon full of distancing clouds. Shuvashia! The ground shaking and the sticks twitching in the trees, bending low and springing up, alive with dancers, and far off in the sky. Coming deep from inside of him, and he knew it. Moving through the brittle grass to the big window of the house.
That wasn't no home. Never was. Those ain't trees. Never were.
Pond moon catching licks of yellowy light. Down, far past the long curve of heel ground, jolting up the smooth gully that feeded that old rat lady's cows once. Up from that, and just a bit to the right, to a long flat piece where they used to bale it, was the blood dot of Jessup, and it howled. He that got caught up in the baler and hacked. He that snuck down to the pond and watched Penny duty sent a string of prints. Went the fog rolling toward him. Went the leaves and the shadows. Jessup lifted out of the fog, his teeth gleaming, thick as a tree and standing higher, billowing up and looking out over the fields towards Penny's house. Jessup on his big legs, waiting for some wind to come on and blow him off the pond. And up it rose, a mile away, clambering out of the gully until it stood high above the trees. A wind called Mama Wishpa, tossing her hair back, whirling with 1,000 voices. Jessup lifted off the grass, mixing with Mama Wishpa, and she roared, diving high into the throat currents till she loomed over him in a twirling ring, gathering all the air about her till she was a rolling wall all around him. Jessup's face spread open, smiling, and Mama Wishpa sucked her little children underneath his big legs and moved him like a dangling thing. And Big Jessup walked through the fields in Mama Wishpa, making the trees chatter. Jessup smiling and twirling his head around and floating on her and laughing as her children giggled in tiny grass stems as they moved him. We ain't gonna let you down, Jessup. Jessup, going bellowing and lifting his feet above his head, laughed and settled down. While Mama Wishpa sent her children spinning. Joey Beam's right hand top hit the door and bent down with a quick, deep hurt. Even here in the night, he could smell the insides of the house.
Like an old bed.
Joey Beam found the loop on the door and pulled it all open. "Come on inside," it yelled. And Joey Beam spit a piss of air out the side of his mouth and slapped on in there. The insides of the house tipped and swinged, tilting the shadows under him. Joey Beam balanced himself down the long hall, keeping his hands away from the walls.
"Don't you come out neither."
And he whistled and he walked to the salt lick, bending way down to get it, when his belly puffing out air. Said the shadows on the plastic stuck to the window, and he waddled out, buck Ernst and breathing with the paper around the salt lick, rubbing the sides of his whisker face. Old Joey Beam knocked the door open with his head, and it came on back and whopped him one. And he spat at the mouth hole in the steps. He shot the lick out into the blackness. And in that dark came a rustling. "Shoo!"
"Oh, goodies."
And he thought about that old rat lady and her carrots.
Those plants ought to be growing down pretty deep by now. Where she put them, growing ugly and deep with their babies.
Joey Beam looked out into the darkness.
Shame on you. Shame on you.
And Joey Beam turned his back on that darkness, his hairs a-bristling. And there was a rustling at his back. Whisk, 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 came the sound of the moon flying low on the east edge, thin but growing bigger. And he knew he wouldn't be getting no sleep. Sweating and rolling and drifting all that whole night long, filling up with voices. It said behind the door, inside the room. Joey Beam grabbed into the house and pulled the door open with a mutter. "Oh, up!" cried the door as the house opened to him. And far off in the distance, the moon sound brimmed fuller. But Joey Beam didn't see it. Caterwalking on the hall toward the kitchen. He dug his hand into his bib pocket and pulled out a stick match up into the night and snapped it raspy down the wall. Visha! His face, and oh, his eyes, gaggy and gray, his bleak night eyes gawking at the wall. The fire, eating the stick up, sent his hand trembling down into the lamp and, pwah, licked itself up the wick. Something down the hall darted like a bold shadow into the attic. Joey Beam pulled a hawk out from the kettle and licked out the blood spot, flopped it back into the pot, and turned on the stove. A blue ring of yellow-tipped teeth bit after the match head, and a scurried sizzling arose and played with the walls, twitching the shadows and layers of growing cold. Joey Beam kicked at a chair until it sat there for him and went still and solid in the scorchy air coming out of the pot.
Whiskey,
he thought to himself. He touched the gop up with water and shook a spell at the cupboard's brown door and ripped off his shoes. Downstairs in the basement, something jiggled and dropped into the floor full of tornado memories and broken glass and ashes of dried fruit. But Joey Beam didn't hear it. He thought of Skinny Penny.
Joey, get out of here, you little bastard.
And her big water eyes like pop bags running down her face, scaring the world and stumbling through the halls, the smell of sour mash trailing like smoke behind her.
Penny, Penny, Penny.
Whack 'em went the table as his feet stumbled off the chair, jarring the morning coffee cup so that it ringed into the table. Nice and cold, Tessie, voiced up the corner behind him. Joey Beam ate it up, bone and beans, gnawing the gristle off the hock with what teeth were left him. He slopped down the coffee that he had boiled in the morning, where for the first time he had seen the bleaching of November light. The ceiling made way for him, raising ever so much to let him fill up with thoughts. Out in the pond, Jassa rolled on his back, waiting for the moon to make it over the rim. And in a tree near Joey Beam's house, a bird gone dizzy stirred up some sound, a wing flutter, a scratch in his belly. A spot on the wall near Joey Beam went damp and got roundish. The same spot Joey Beam used to cry at while waiting for Benny. Fed up, said the cup flying off the table as he poked himself into the kitchen, peeling his hands off his face and reeling. His bed was calling him, and the room it was in. Joey Beam moved towards the room that was calling him. He walked through the bloody shadows towards it, past the icy room chutes, in that awful silence towards the attic door.
Come on now, Joey. No use hanging around down there.
But Joey Beam moved past that attic door. Not hot, not cold, not even scary. Just nothing. Not even empty. But just like it wasn't even there. Nor her words crawling down to him.
God, God, God.
Joey Beam pushed through the room toward a loop-back chair leaning against the wall. He threw his shirts off the bed and watched them tumble out of the light. Joey Beam's chin like a cliff jag jutting, and the cold wind pressing on the windows. Something pushed down on the floor above him. And in his mind, he heard Cacker's dead dog claws dancing like snapping scissors round and round, huffing and wheezing and circling. And the voice of that dead girl and the dog she loved, the one that died of distemper.
Help, help, help.
Cracked moon rising with icy earth light shimmering in the cowering heat waves. Cracked moon blade, jagged jagged on the east edge with the light chipped out of it, etching the fences and hilltops with steady lightning. Cracked moon coming up in the east, and it was. Cracked moon growing bigger, roasting the trees with a dewy glow like wet bones and gray mud floating in the air. Cold light, throbbing hollow light, deepening the shadows and bleaching the edge of things. Joey Beam's arm dropped and pointed its knuckles toward the bed.
I'm gonna sleep there.
Something let go between his legs.
We'll see,
it said. But Joey Beam didn't see it, sitting there, his eyes taped to a ribbon from a place he called the past. There was Pinny again. And then there she was, coming to him. And then there she was upstairs, sick, pressing on the floor, crying till the veins pushed out on her face, all swollen and red. And there were his hands smoothing back her black hair.
Penny, Penny, Penny.
Her temples hot and wet. Her eyes black knives. Her hands strong and sharp, and even in her agony, loving things, delicate as crisp leaves.
Go on down in the bed, Joey Beam. Go on down there.
And Joey Beam did, rocking back into the bed, coughing and already dreaming. The dogies lay down in the wind, their cold green eyes shining. Old dead dogs. Dogs of Joey Beam's father and dogs before him, old as the farm. All the way there now, out of the grief throes, sinking closer to the print dust. Old rat lady moved out from the shed, glowing and blending with a silvery air. Old rat lady with her hands full of carrots, come to get the salt lick and lock the farm up tight. Jassib floated through the branches and fell asleep in the tree. Joey Beam watched his hand rise into the night. He saw the knuckles like broken rocks beneath the fissures in his skin. He watched the shadows crawling in from the windows. A dark night in late October. The wind blowing through the spaces in the house. The yard light blinking with moths and dust. The window tossing voices at the screen. The smell of his bed. The bean pot in the kitchen. And the water lisping from the faucet. The rooms with the dark holes in them. Joey Beam's hand looked back at him like a bird, and it brushed his hair out of his face, then grasped the edge of the bed and bent his elbow so Joey Beam could roll onto it and look out across the room at the figure in the shadows, sitting on a chair filled with old clothes, her head bent down. And his heart pounded hard and icy in his chest. The shadows fell into his mouth, and the edges of his body jutted out of the covers, cleaned and dusted by the cracked moonlight. And he could hear her whispering close to his ear.
Why don't you go to sleep, Joey Beam?
And she'd be gone again, out into the night, like a lofty wind. And she'd be singing in the trees and spinning round and round.
Pinny's Ghost, written and performed by John O'Keefe, with Robert Ernst, Mary Forcade, and Susan Van Benthuysen. Produced by John Kroll. Engineered by Randy Bobo. Sound design and mix by Peter Buffett.
The executive producer for the Territory of Art is Julie Lazar. Senior producer, Steve Rath, Murray Street Enterprise. Production manager, Steve Profit. Mastering engineer and technical consultant, Chris Solom. Series theme music by Bob Telson. Production facilities provided by 52nd Street and KUSC, Los Angeles. Funds for the Territory of Art were provided by the Polaroid Corporation on the occasion of its 50th anniversary, the Rockefeller Foundation, the American Public Radio Program Fund with the assistance of the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, and the National Endowment for the Arts. The Territory of Art is a production of MoCA, the Museum of Contemporary Art, Los Angeles, which is solely responsible for its content. For cassette copies of the program or additional information, write MoCA Radio, 250 South Grand Avenue, Los Angeles, California, 90012. For the Territory of Art, I'm Eric Bogosian.
This is the American Public Radio Network.